You're on the JoyNews channel. This is The Pulse, live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. I am blessed Sogah. And coming up this afternoon, slanted growth and poor performing currency. The story of Ghana's economic crisis as it faces an imminent collapse. JoyNews is learning this afternoon. President Akufo-Addo is making one more attempt at fixing the problem.
I will be in the chair to receive what has gone through the EMT and also to receive the update from the IMF negotiations so that some decisions can be made, and then subsequently he can then update the nation on the next steps forward.
We'll get you the latest from government. Meanwhile, Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources is also in the news this afternoon, directing all mining firms and owners of excavators to register their earth moving equipment to undertake a mandatory registration within 48 hours or face some sanctions. We'll tell you about the sanctions, plus get some directives and reactions also greeting this latest that we have for you. Meanwhile, the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Adjameh, has been ordered by an Accra High Court to submit the full complement of evidence it intends to rely on for the prosecution of Chinese businesswoman Aisha Huang, as trials will begin shortly.
Comply with it, but it wasn't within time, as I told the court. As we speak, it's been done. The whole thing is, if you are prosecuting a case like what we have at the moment, you need to dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure all the documents are made available to counsel on the other side.
As we get the latest on government's case this afternoon, and creating a world that understands, accepts and support people who stammer. Here on The Pulse, we'll hear from a rights group which is asking for their voices to be heard. We'll talk all about that here on The Pulse. This is JoyNews, independent, fearless and credible journalism. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities, Digni Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. This afternoon, we're streaming live on YouTube, and all of our social media handles is at JoyNews on TV. I am blessed Sogah. Thanks for choosing us. We'll be back with the details shortly. And this afternoon, we talk about the economy. President Akufo-Addo is making one more attempt at fixing the collapsing economy. Earlier today, Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah indicated that the economic management team will this week table before the president a number of recommendations, including updates on Ghana's austerity plans with the IMF.
All that right from the beginning of this year, government has been updating the country on some key economic matters. You recall in April, or just at the end of March, when Cabinet held its first quarter retreat, I updated you all on the kind of economic pressures that we were of the view was going to befall us because of what was going on, and some of the measures that the government was introducing right at that time to help containment. That's where we introduced the cuts to budget and a few other measures as addressed by the finance minister. At the end of the second quarter, when Cabinet held its retreat and the president had the opportunity to see the numbers again, you recall the president instructed that we start negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. And so the statement was released on, I think, the 1st of July, just after the second quarter retreat. Since then, there have been a lot of engagement with the fund, and a number of statements have been released to update the Ghanaian public on how that is going, and it's going pretty well. This week, as we are coming to the end of the third quarter period, going into the final quarter fully, tomorrow morning, for example, the Central Bank, the Bank of Ghana, will be meeting the managing directors of some of the banks and the heads of, I think, the Forex Bureau associations for a series of discussions aimed at ensuring that the supply of Forex onto the Forex markets is stabilized and the overpricing is also halted, and that people who need access to Forex for legitimate transactions can get same without hindrance in the banking halls and at the Forex bureaus, as against on the black market or using some rates coming from some other quarters. They'll also be looking at, I think, some of the longer lasting measures to ensure that Forex trade is stabilized in this country, even as we expect a lot more inflow of Forex following the completion of the syndication of the Cocoa Board transaction. My understanding is that later this week as well, the economic management team, I think today, the economic management team is also meeting to apprise itself of the latest numbers as have been put together and some of the recommendations as we get into the final part of the year. And then from Thursday, Cabinet itself will be meeting. I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Cabinet itself will be meeting. The President will be in the chair to receive what has gone through the EMT and also to receive the update from the IMF negotiations so that some decisions can be made. And then subsequently, he can then update the nation on the next steps forward. So just to give you a quick update.
So on the issue of Forex Bureau meetings, we've heard from the grapevine that there's some meeting with Forex Bureau owners. If you can give a little bit details about that.
As I said, the Bank of Ghana is meeting the banks and the Forex Bureau. That's where you expect Forex trade to take place at the approved rates to ensure that they have clarity on supply channels, availability or adequacy of Forex for those who legitimately need it for transactions, as against those who will be resorting to speculation and, just buying and hoarding, etc.
Appears it's going to be a very long week for the president. Meanwhile, as we speak, the performance of the Ghana cedi has worsened by the day. The US dollar, which crossed the 15 cedi mark days ago, is now heading towards the 16 ranges, raising fears about a possible further surge in inflation, especially on fuel prices across the country in the midst of an already unbearable crisis. Calls have been made for Ghana to go back to the basics, growing what we eat and eating what we grow as part of the plan to deal with the challenge. Let's speak to one man who has been at the center of that campaign, Dr. Abu Sakara Foster. He is the leader of the National Interest Movement. Good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome to the polls. And
good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Now we're hearing that the president is up for a long task this week. He's receiving briefings from the economic management team. And even as we speak, economy continues to, of course, fall in its place of pride. The currency is also not doing well. How are you receiving all of these issues? And what do you think the president should be placing on top of his priority list?
Well, I think it's natural that in the course of this turmoil, there will be frantic efforts internally to try and contain the situation. However, these are in situ measures that we expect any management team to be doing. What we expected in terms of overall strategy and guidance and consultation to overcome the fundamental problem was to have those discussions prior to going to IMF, not internal party discussions only, but a broad consultation so that you get many hands and many heads on board to decide a fundamentally different approach that will cope with not only the internal situation, but also a changing world in which many of the drivers of these situations are exogenous to our nation. Now, if we don't take that fundamentally different approach and we keep doing what we have been doing, no matter how intensely we do it, we will come back to the same point. And the case in point is this much celebrated 900 million thereabouts, which is coming in. This is going to be a flash in the pan because the amount of heat that is in the economy now waiting to receive redress. This will be like throwing water in a hot pan. It will evaporate in thin air in a matter of weeks, and that will be the end of it because we have not addressed the fundamental issue of how we generate more money than we spend.
I'm grateful that you're touching on the fundamentals. And since you're talking about the fundamentals, there'll be a need for us to, first of all, diagnose the problem. What's been your diagnosis of the challenge that we're facing now?
We have had a long-standing problem, which is the size of our government and its expenditure relative to the size of our economy and the amount of income we generate. This is nothing new. Every government that we have had have faced the situation. It has been exasperated now because our expenditures increased significantly and our borrowing increased significantly. And therefore, it has brought us to this situation of crisis. particularly when misjudgments and miscalculations were made and did not take into account what the global situation where the global situation would take us. Because the interest rates externally now, interest rates that we have never heard of in the UK, in Canada, etc., they're now the norm, 9%, 10%. Of course, our interest rates, which had been pushed down to 16%, have now gone above 37%. So these are situations which, if you don't have a fundamentally different approach that focuses on growing your economy from the production areas rather than looking at it from the services and only the extractive areas, we are going to have a problem.
But this government, and I'm sorry, Doc, for cutting through, but this government has made that promise of shifting the economy from taxation to production. That claim has been. It appears it's not. Yes, but it appears it's not an easy task, right?
The president, when he made his, State of the Nation address, this was a pledge that he made, but when he made subsequent State of the Nation addresses, the pledge was still being made. So when are we going to have that fundamental shift? When are we going to be able to take charge of those areas where we know there are big gaps? And those cannot be taken care of just by manipulating the systems and the levels of incomes we have now. We have to have radically different incomes, and those can only come from our agriculture sector and our manufacturing sector. And if the costs of doing business for those sectors keep going up, then even the little that we have there will be dwindling. And that is what we are seeing. So when we talk about fundamental changes, that's what we need to do. And it's not a matter of, debate. We have been brought to this situation. So now we have to sit around the table and say, look, if we take a fundamentally different approach, what will it require? Even as we go towards to the IMF, they're going to have to make some fundamental decisions. You cannot go to the IMF with the same sheet of income and expenditure and hope to come out with the same sheet. They're going to know, okay, the 1,000 staffers at Flagstaff House, are you going to keep them? The 100 and something ministers, are you going to keep them? The number of public sector workers, which has gone up from 600 to 900, are you going to keep them? If you're going to keep them, what will be your bill? If you're going to reduce it, by how much? We want to know the amount of money going into the production sectors like agriculture and manufacturing and the transaction costs for that. How will that money bring the transaction costs down to make our people competitive in the market space? If you get this fundamentally right, then everybody can begin to contribute. But if we don't, then we're on a treadmill, and no matter how fast we run, we cannot keep up with an exchange rate which is depreciating, being pushed by exogenous factors to the country, but also, of course, our own management of the economy internally. And then, we expect that the raw materials we export will break the gap. It's not going to happen. So we have said time and again that we have to move from this Gettysburg economy. But what have we done fundamentally to shift it away? And until we shift it away, we'll keep going back to the IMF. And if going back to the IMF was a solution to our problems, it would have been solved a long time ago.
But then, this is where I also want to talk about the agricultural sector. It's a place you're very passionate about. Many believe if we're looking for solutions, we turn to the agricultural sector because it's part of the solution to the challenge that we're facing now. How do we do that?
Well, first of all, let me not miss this opportunity, since this money is coming in, to appeal to the minister to pay the seed growers for the seed they supplied 1.5, 2 years ago, because those monies are still pending. But the fundamental issue of our agriculture sector, if you look at the bigger picture, and not these small issues, is simply the fact that we have a significant amount of area which is lying down idle. So labor, land, water, and sunlight lying idle for 6 months of the year. We depend only on the rainy season. And we have talked about it time and time again. make that fundamental investment in infrastructure, etc., that will bring that at least even 30% of that land under cultivation during the dry season. Let's secure those areas of production, put the infrastructure there, hold it, and that will provide us the reliable supply for processing. And it will add to what we produce in the rainy season, giving us our buffer in food security and ensuring that our GDP grows by at least 15, 20%. Because what you can produce in that dry season will add to what you produce in the rainy season. Now, if we do this alone, and we have the water to do it, but we must make the investment, and we must do it with renewable energy. We cannot do it with fossil fuel energy. And when we say we do it with renewable energy, I'm talking about solar power. We can use our wind corridor in the eastern corridor, but that will have limited locations. But solar power is everywhere. And we must put off-grid solar power on those sites and be able to sell that solar power to the electricity boards at preferential rates, so that when we need that energy back for processing at the same sites, we can get that at whatever price they are charging. Now, if you don't do this, and we're relying on fossil fuels alone, we'll have a gap. But if we do it with renewable energies, not only can we access some of the funds that are globally available in carbon credits for this and get some of our money back, but you will cut back the running costs and put us in a competitive
Dr.
position.
Sakara, if the agric sector was our best bet, many are of the opinion that the Planting for Food and Jobs campaign would have solved part of the challenge that we're facing now. Yet, if you take a look at the figures from the statistics department, it appears that clearly food importation or food inflation is leading the chart in terms of one of the highest rates that we're paying for as consumers. So why then still have the hope that we need to go green to transform Ghana's economy?
Well, it is true that we have fallen short in the Planting for Food and Jobs, but it is not entirely true that it has contributed nothing. If it was not for food and Planting for Food and Jobs, the situation would be much worse. However, it has not achieved what it set out to achieve, that we said we would achieve with it. And that is because, as usual, when we do something and it works a little bit, we sprinkle it everywhere. And in the process, you dilute what you have done and neutralize it. And you don't allow the building up along the value chain to get a pyramid so that you have the synergistic effect of all that you have invested, and at least it will stay there and everybody can see where it is. But this political games of spreading things and sprinkling the salt everywhere around the nation, it always results in the same thing. That is why we have had thousands and thousands of projects, both in the NGO sector, the development donor sector, and even the government sector. But where are those projects now? Because they have not been organized in such a way that we have a core and cadre of people that we know are going to stay in the business. We have been trying to get numbers and spread everywhere and touch everybody. Then, we say we have had so many million farmers participate, and, it sounds politically palatable, but in terms of the business of agriculture, that's not the correct way to go about it. So its initial success became its own Achilles heel. But having said that, it doesn't mean that the idea was not good. It was in the right direction, but it needs to go a lot further. And it needs to do that in the context of a comprehensive policy in which we have decided that our growers are going to have a competitive edge in our domestic market. And there's certain unavoidable transaction costs related to energy, related to machinery, and related to access to markets that we will take policy interventions to make sure that when their produce comes on the market, it is competitive. Others do it for their people. If we do this for our people, and we make sure we build a cadre of people along the conveyor belt from small scale going to medium and commercial scale, and you protect them, then that way you will have a permanent cadre of forces to rely on in agriculture. But if you keep sprinkling and sprinkling and sprinkling money, it will touch so many people, and some of them don't even stay in agriculture. They just come because something is being given, and after that they're out.
I get the point. We're being criticized now by some of our viewers that we're talking long term. Let's talk about the immediate solutions. The president will be going into that meeting starting with the economic management team. There'll be updates on the austerity plan with the IMF. These two issues may come up. You want to have a bite on that as well?
Well, of course, there will be things that come up, but as I said, it's going to be what are we conceding, what on the balance books is going to show the cuts that we have made to bring us into line with what people expect in terms of the percentage of the income that will be spent on salaries, and what percentage will be spent on servicing the loans, and what will be left to do the other things that we have to do. Those are basic things that if you don't get right, you cannot pass through these discussions properly. And we also have to address one thing, and this thing is not only Ghana, but many other developing countries have to look at the indices that the IMF are using and maybe introduce the component of a human development index for where our level of development is. So, because we need to do a lot to improve the welfare of human beings. And it may be that these two things are contradictory. You may be improving the welfare of human beings, but you may not be getting the right other indicators that you need to satisfy the World Bank. So we have to look at the compromise in this area if we're going to think outside the box.
Dr. Sakara.
Now, one thing I'd like to say,
right.
It is a penchant of Ghanaians that they want quick answers to quick solutions. There are no quick answers to quick solutions. If you have to explain something in detail, that's because you have to go to those fundamental causes and explain them. So it's not long things. It is because we avoid those details that we always come back to the same point.
Some persons are paying the political price elsewhere for the economic downturn of their countries. I'm talking about, for instance, what's happening in the UK as we speak. The conversation has been similar here in our country. The call that some officers or appointees of the state be relieved of their post. Top on that agenda is the finance minister. I'm sure you've heard the calls as well.
Yes.
What should be done to some of these appointees?
The issue is responsiveness of democracy. And if the populace feel a certain way about the service that they are getting, the people in public office are servants to the people. And if people are not happy, they expect certain measures to be made to take into account the fact that they are not happy. And if it results in the resignation of one or two people, that may be one thing to satisfy the people.
Dr. Sakara, let me be a bit more direct now. Is it appropriate? Is this the time for Colonel Furiata to step aside?
Well, my point is this. If he steps aside and there is no credible alternative plan, it does not solve our solution.
The alternative will come later. The question about the propriety or otherwise of his resignation.
Yes. So my point here is this. If I were the president, I would look for a credible alternative plan and maybe accept his resignation as a way of introducing that plan as a new basis for our common consultation. But simply, removing him without that plan will not solve your problem.
But on the question of the propriety or otherwise, what should be happening to Kenneth?
Definitely, look, as far as I am concerned, it's a performance index, and nobody can say that this performance index is satisfactory. I can speak for myself. If I were in that position, I would offer my resignation. It's up to him to decide whether it is appropriate for him or not. But for me, I would do that, but I would do that on the back of another alternative plan that I would ask the president to propose. And in order that I will not be a stumbling block to the progress of that plan, I would offer my resignation.
Let's wrap up with the outlook. At least government is seeking to expedite the IMF talks, getting funds in by end of December. We're not sure if that's happening. Some experts say we should expect the funds first quarter next year. What's your own projections?
Well, look, the fact of the matter is that the duration to the time you get the funds is not just a function of the process, but a function of the terms that you meet. If you don't meet the terms, it can take you even longer than that. So obviously some terms have been discussed. Now is the time to be open about what those things mean. If they're going to mean severe cuts in jobs, if they're going to mean removal of some of the, social support programs, etc., this is the time to come out. But actually, in my thinking, we should have had that discussion before we went there, because we all know full well that you simply cannot walk into the IMF and come out with the same budget that you were spending, but with more money. Some decisions have to be made. And this was what we meant when we said that there should be a broader consultation. Because at the end of the day, you cannot solve these problems with just eternal partisan thinking. Because it's partly a political decision that is going to require the buy-in of the rest of the populace. And in a democracy which is largely competitive, it is difficult to mobilize support when at the same time those actions are being used against you, just like you use those actions against other people. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Now, to avoid that situation, you create an atmosphere where people can come on board, you accept your shortcomings, and say, okay, now as a nation, let's sit down, let's solve this problem. What are we going to do? What cuts are we going to have to live with? If we make these cuts, can we all get our support around them? If we're going to give up certain programs, can we institute that in the context of a long-term national development plan, where when another group comes, you can carry it on? Look, there's nothing that we're going to do now that will be the solution to getting the IMF funds. It's going to be a long-term process that will take us beyond 2022 up to 2024, 2025. We will still be fulfilling some of those conditions. And if a chance in 2025, we have a change of government and they throw all those things overboard because they were not party to it, then we're going back to the drawing board again. And the progress that we made would have been lost. And this is the story of Ghana. We keep making progress, but we lose it because there's change of administration and we take a different direction altogether. And that is why it's important to have this national consensus so that all the difficult decisions that have to be made are going to be made by all sides and we commit to them so that in 2025, if perchance there's a different government, we're not going to get a radically different approach immediately. We're going to carry on with that and build on new things.
Since you're raising this point, the president has stated his position on a national dialogue on matters relating to the economy. He doesn't seem interested in that bipartisan approach. We've seen similar appointees also make the point that there would be no need for the century-like kind of engagement. I just want to pick up your message, first of all, to the president on the bipartisan call for dialogues on our economy, and also for you to share your accounts with me. This is the same man you ran against some time ago when he wanted to be president, correct? Do you see that same national spirit in the president just 6 years down the line after he's won power?
Well, I cannot see inside the heart of the president to see the state of his spirit. But what I can see are the promises that were made, what has been delivered on, and the shortfalls. And these are significant. Now, when we say this, we're saying it with all sincerity, not appreciate what has been done, but to appreciate the huge task still ahead of us. And the fact that we have failed to address the fundamental issue, which is raising our level of income by exploiting other non-traditional areas of our economy and even the traditional agriculture sector of the areas to bring it up to par so that we have a bigger GDP and more money to deal with. But we've tried to focus only on the extraction and the services and a little effort at agriculture, but not of the magnitude and the scale required to transform. the economy. And that's where we are at. Now, that for me is one of the failings that I feel, he has come up short on. And we need to look at that going forward. In addition to that, I think the whole idea of opening up to ideas that don't come from within your own party, the refusal to do that has been the bane of development in this country. And it is a function of this antagonistic democracy that we have developed, where, to consult your opponents, it seems to be the fact that you're bereft of ideas. That's why you're consulting. We need to do away with that kind of thinking. There's a left and a right hand for good reason. You need both of them on opposite sides to work together to get the maximum out of your body. And it's the same in people who oppose you and people who don't have the same ways of thinking about you. They're also part of your arm. And as a president, you need to use both of them or all of them to get the best out of the system. If we stick to only what is within our group, nobody can make it. No single party can get Ghana to where we need to be just based on their own ideas to the exclusion of anybody else's ideas. Because no matter what progress that you make, when there's a change of government, as we have often seen, that progress is eroded, and because there's a new direction, a new start again. And that is a fundamental difference to what we have had in our development process compared to these Asian tigers and what they have had in their development process. They have had the essence of continuity from one administration to the other, and we have not had that. And you cannot expect to have the same results if you don't have the same system.
Dr. Sakara, I'm grateful for your time this afternoon on The Pulse. He's founder and leader of the National Interest Movement. There's a lot more of agitation happening across the country because the Professional Glaziers Association of Ghana have also served notice to actually lock up shops over what they describe as the continuous outrageous price hikes of raw materials in a demonstration that we've seen. The group is indicating that the prices of aluminium materials such as glasses keep increasing on a daily basis. Minerals and the materials are actually now sold at 480 Ghana cedis at the beginning of the year, but the prices have changed and it's currently sold at 1,000 Ghana cedis, affecting the growth of their businesses.
Clad in red, the aluminium glaziers chanted in displeasure to the stifling production environment. Regional Secretary of the association, Sumaila Ibrahim Zaina, says price of glasses have increased astronomically. According to him, their businesses are on the verge of collapsing.
Glaziers! Glaziers! One, virtually every day we experience increment in the price of our materials. What is happening? We've been calling on our suppliers on millions of occasions to come and have a meeting with us. Anytime we call them, it's with Twitter. They don't have the invitation. So we are by this press conference. We want to start the whole country and the government as a whole. They should sit down with our suppliers and everybody to talk for us to know the reason why there is the increment. We don't know what's happening. Our items are being manufactured here in this country, in Ghana here. But what increment? There's no any import duty. But every day, right now as we are speaking, you can call them for a price of an item. By the time you get there, they've increased it.
According to the artisans, the price increment has affected all 21 raw materials used in production. They can no longer work with estimates for clients. Chairman of the association says they are no longer buying raw materials for production until the situation improves.
From Monday till date, there has been about 5 times of increment, and it is really collapsing our businesses. We know for sure that our president is a listing government. It's a listing government, so we are looking up to him to come into our problem. Is to come into our problem, and then thereafter, if you don't hear anything from the president or the people in charge of authority, all we sought to do is to go on demonstration. The prelims is right now we want to stop buying from the suppliers and make some silent demonstrations, a sit-down strike for that matter.
Some aggrieved members expressed displeasure against importers and wholesalers over the continuous increment of goods.
Because the whole Ashanti region, the whole Ashanti region, masters here 864. Ya trunk almost 7,000 a juma. Nasa di ya daddy a guho. Nasa ankola we naswa be bedje at the moment. Tisana ban pedia. You to sana mon at the Wagana ban.
Mona Lisa Frempon reporting.
And thanks for staying with us here on the polls. When we return, we'll tell you about a directive from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources directing all mining firms to register their excavators. It's coming up right here on the polls. Please stay. Legal mining now. Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources is directing all mining firms and owners of excavators to register their earth-moving equipment and to undertake a mandatory registration within 48 hours of a sanctions. The move is seen as part of measures of government to enhance its mechanism to check the fight to check illegal mining activities across the country. Here are excerpts of the directives as we have them coming through from the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry. First of all, we know that all owners, operators and users of excavators in the country shall, within 7 days of this notice, excluding weekends and statutory holidays, register their excavators with the metropolitan, municipal or district assemblies. Then also MMDAs within their jurisdiction has to interact with them within their areas where they're supposed to be operating the excavators. There's also another point that the ministry is talking about. There's a second point for the avoidance of doubt that the deadline for this particular registration of the excavators in the country will be done by close of business on Wednesday, 2nd November 2022. There's a third point about the ownership. Now, if you're an owner, operator, or a user of an excavator, at the time of registration, you must specify the purpose for which you've purchased the excavator and why you're using it and where you intend to use it, that particular area where that excavator will be operating. And you must state that. You must also ensure that the MMDAs, as we're seeing from this directive, as part of the registration record, will, of course, need the following. They'll need your name and particulars, the owner of the excavator, the date of the on which the excavator was brought into the country, the registration number of the excavator, the chassis number of the excavator. These are details that they'll be picking up. There's also the purposes for which the excavator was brought into the country. And then there's also the area where the excavator is supposed to be used. Then we can talk about the name and particulars of the current operator and or the user of the excavator. And we also do have any particulars the MMDA may need. And now we're seeing that the power is being devolved much more to the grassroots where the excavators are operating. Beyond that as well, there's a point which the minister wants all of us to take notice of, that any excavator not registered in accordance with the directive, whether found at a mining site or any other operational site or elsewhere, will first of all be seized and necessary legal steps will be taken to confiscate the same to the state. And we're getting the assurances from the Minister for Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development that they have been notified and that they'll be taking up measures as directed by the MMDAs to ensure the strict compliance with this very directive. And so notice is hereby given to the general public, particularly owners and operators of excavators, as well as all MMDAs to ensure strict compliance with these directives. Now, the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources also wishes to indicate and reassure the general public that it will continue to take necessary measures to protect the natural environment, particularly water bodies, forests and lands, in a transparent, sustainable manner anchored on integrity. And signed by the Sector Minister, Samuel Abujinapo. Let's bring in now Abdul Razak Al-Hassan. He speaks for the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners. Good afternoon to you, Razak. Welcome to the program. So you've heard the directives from the minister. As an association, are you willing to comply with these measures?
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to your listeners. The directives, we've just said it, and we as an association will not oppose it, but the timing, that 48 hours, I don't know how it's going to be done, because there are many of the excavators whereby, yes, we need to register them like they rightly said, but at the same time, we need to understand that some of these excavators are on at zero sites. Some are not even, some are broken down, whereby the owners are still working on them. And for those things, there are so many. I think the timing is the problem that some of us are looking at. The 48 hours directive, if it can be extended to a week or two, I think that one will look more feasible.
Were you engaged about this very directive from the minister? The fact that you'd have to register your excavators. Were you giving any idea at all of what's happening now?
We just said it because we don't have that idea. Because what we know is that every small-scale miner or every earth-moving machine has to be registered under DVLA, whereby that's the rules of the game, whereby you need to go register an excavator, have your your DVLA numbers and those things. But this is the directives coming from the ministry, whereby MMDCs and Minerals Commission have to register. And given these 24 hours, we as an association have not been informed. We, the industry, we are not aware. It's just a directive coming from the minister. That is why some of us are saying that the 48 hours is too short of a time, that the ministry has to look into it and send it to all those who are at hinterlands, and those things will have the actual time, because some are not even in town, some of the owners are not around, and they cannot, all the documents that they are having and those things, to come and even prove to them, to the government DCs that these are their documents and these are the excavators that they have. So given 48 hours is too short of a time.
And I'm interested in knowing about the processes. Normally when you bring in your excavators, do you carry out any registration process, probably with the Minerals Commission? Do you do that?
Hello?
Razak, I'm just asking about the processes. Normally when you bring down your excavators for operation on the mining concessions, what processes do you take these machines through?
That's that thing I just told you, because you have to pass, because it's an earth-moving machine, whereby you need to register your excavator through DVLA. But this is a directive coming from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. So we don't know whether they are registering all excavators in this country, those who are using them into construction, those who are using them to mine, others are using them in quarries and those things. So the directive has to be clear, like all of us are aware. And then we know that if we are stopping the DVLA aspect and we are dealing with the ministry one, then we then know that, okay, the DVLA registration is no more necessary. It is rather the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources through the MMDC. Then we don't know. But the 48 hours, I think, is a short time.
So going forward, what should we expect from your association? Are you likely to petition the minister over the time frame?
We will, now that we just have the information, I think we'll be having a very short emergency meeting to also see how best we can also give government advice, and then we'll see how best it will be feasible for all registered earth-moving machines to be feasible to register. So we'll just have a short, an emergency meeting, then also look at what we can also do to advise the ministry, so that we all do the thing or do the registration without any hindrances, and then make sure that everybody will comply into the directive. this is a directive whereby we cannot say we are opposing, but we need to also find a way to do the registration whereby it will be feasible, and then it will help all the industry players, and those who are doing the proper mining will do their registration more responsibly.
On the whole, I guess you're not against the principle of re-registering, if I should use that word, all of these excavators, are you?
That's what I'm saying. We'll meet and then we'll know the type of registration the Ministry of Agriculture has to register. Is it to identify that these are the people who are owing excavators, or is it the DVLA processes of registration they're talking about? Is it what type of registration are they talking about? Is it to identify to know the number of excavators in this country? We need to understand all these things. So,
okay then.
We cannot just. We need to also sit down, look into it, and understand the type of registration.
All right. Abdul Razak Hassan is the communications director for the Ghana National Association of Small Scale Miners. Obviously, a crunch meeting is expected in the coming days. We'll see what the outcome of that engagement would be. But let's stay on illegal mining, because a 26-year-old woman has died in what neighbors say was the result of her toilet sinking into a pit dug under her house by illegal miners at Odumase in the Asante Achim Central Municipality. The body of Gifty Manka was retrieved with an excavator early Sunday, sparking fears about the possible collapse of residential facilities in the town due to illegal mining. The incident reveals widespread mining within residential facilities at Odumase and the associated threats of life. Lava FM's Erastus Saridonko now reports.
This amateur video shows final moments when an excavator dug out the remains of Gifty Manka, 26, who close friends say was pregnant. Her death tells a tragic tale of the dangerous impact of mining in residential facilities Odumase in the Asante Achim Central Municipality. So imagine waking up in the morning and deciding to visit the nature's call. What is supposed to be a natural activity turns out to be your death. This is what happened here today at Odumase in the Asante Achim Central Municipality. The lady in question, a young woman who lives in this house, was attending to nature's call. The entire structure in which she was doing her business collapsed in a heap, went down into what is supposed to be a mining pit. Now, if you look around this area, there are lots of these pits within these houses at Odumase actively mining. And this is what caused the death of a lady here. Where I'm standing right now, just close to me, inside here, you could see another pit inside this house, and it goes deep down. And that is what the indigents here, this is how they do their illegal mining. The entire residential toilet sank into the deep pit beneath the building, as recounted by a resident.
Yeah, it's as a result of the galamsey. It's not about the toilet. And we have to speak the truth. And we need to stop it. And we have to come together as a nation to stop this galamsey madness. But we cannot allow this galamsey to go on in our houses. You know this lady who died this morning, she's not beneficiary of the mining, but she has died this morning because of somebody being a beneficiary of that mining.
The sprawling Odumase Apibose community is dotted with underground pits dug in homes, linking each other in what could be described as a hanging town. The practice of mining inside houses, which dates years back, is getting worse. The impact of continuous digging beneath houses could be seen in the huge cracks and the sinking earth around buildings in the town. To the ordinary eye, this is a normal residential compound house. But inside it, we found deep pits laced with wooden steps that go several meters down. We were shown a number of such houses at Odumase. Residents are angry.
No one information. We fear me say we fear when I say that we painful be a day. At the toilet to was saying, "Omo disika say kronankasa." Eti panifuwa chisasia and I hear Jumano if you met me the house to house. How move to be? You be fear about the menstrual. If you Brono was so I went one and scanny. God will must send one. Omo can cry a day around because but some fear 2030 yet to go home because the cast in your tissue.
Police sources say they've heard of the pits and mining in residential facilities, but cannot barge into private homes without a warrant. This you see here, this gate does not lead to any storeroom in any building. This, if you peep through, leads to an illegal mining site under this building. There is a pit in here, barricaded with wood, which goes deep down. And that's the kind of illegal mining people here do at Odumase in the Asante Achim Central District. Many of these houses here have pits similar to this one in there. So when people go into their houses, they are not going to sleep, they are going in there to mine illegally. And all these houses are at risk of collapse. Reporting for JoyNews, Erastus Asaredonko, Odumase, Asante Achim Central Municipality.
And Erastus Asaredonko will be joining us shortly to give us some updates on this because we are getting a bit of reactions from the community and some other authorities who are beginning to act on this update. Even before we get that, the Attorney General has also been ordered by an Accra High Court to submit the full complement of the evidence it intends to rely on for the prosecution of Chinese national Aisha Huang, who is standing trial for her alleged role in illegal mining activities in the Ashanti region. The Attorney General on October 11 told the court he was ready for the trial and will disclose all evidence to be used. It is, however, emerging that the court has no documents as of now submitted by the Attorney General. Deputy AG Alfred Tuayeboa has been interacting with court correspondent. For some more on this, we can get more in this report.
The understanding was that you're going to comply with the orders for disclosure. I mean, why have you not been able to do that today?
We have complied with it, but it wasn't within time, as I told the court. As we speak, it's been done. The whole thing is, if you are prosecuting a case like what we have at the moment, you need to dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure all the documents are made available to counsel on the other side. That's what we've done. So on the next agenda, definitely we are going to move on.
I mean, and are you ready to go on with this? I mean, the other lawyer on the other side was making the point that you had wanted to withdraw some of the documents that you had found.
Yes, earlier we filed some witness statements. So the new ones that we have filed, we've incorporated the old ones into them. So on the next agenda, it's a matter of just withdrawing the old one and then we have full complement of the witness statement.
Thank you.
And poor parental control and poverty have been identified as key factors accounting for Ghana's increasing cases of teenage pregnancy and child marriage. The challenges are impeding the ability of the girl child to attain her full potential, largely in formal education. To end the problem, government introduced a 5 strategic plan to retain the girl child in school or without pregnancy. The journey has, however, not been easy for girls in such situations. The second part of a JoyNews latest hotline documentary dubbed Girls, Schools, Pregnancy. We'll hear stories of some of these adolescents and actors in the education space on interactions and interventions being deployed to make life easy in school for them.
16-year-old Charity Azamati is also nursing a 1.5-month-old baby. Just like Dorcas, Charity left school about 4 months ago to have a baby. She cohabits with her baby's father, who is still living with both parents. Her baby is being named today. An elder of the Apostolic Church Ghana, Avedakba Local Assembly, James Awunyo, is officiating the ceremony. Sharing his experience and how challenging the school re-entry process could be, Mr. Awunyo says it's far rewarding to get the student's mother back to school, regardless.
It's not easy, but it's not also difficult.
Okay.
Nowadays, what I've been seeing, when they get pregnant in school, they find it difficult to further. As I was telling them that I'm happy to be a victim. And my own case, it wasn't a teenage pregnancy though, but it happened in that way.
Okay.
It happened that way. And the girl was in SS before the thing happened.
Okay.
And there were two. There were two. Let me see, we played some small bad boys game, and the two of them got pregnant. And
all of them for you?
Not for me.
For another one?
We are friends.
Okay, okay.
And we went with that, we did that small thing, and it's happening like that. But I'm happy to send my own back to school.
Okay, at what point?
After she has lived 1 year.
Okay.
I took the child.
So she was in SS1?
SS1.
Okay.
Getting to 2.
Okay.
And the two of them are the same.
Okay.
Two of them were going to SS before that thing happened. But when it happens like that, the other one couldn't send
his girlfriend to
school. And I was able to send my own to school. And I can say that it has really helped me. And now I can say that my wife is a teacher now, holding a degree in education now. So I was encouraging them that they should send the girl to the school. After, they should take care of the child and they send her to school. Because all hope is not lost.
Yeah.
Charity's partner, 23-year-old Destiny, is a sales boy in Accra. He goes back home occasionally to visit his family. It was during one of such visits that he got Charity pregnant. But from all indications, the couple has been having sex for close to 3 years without protection. He now regrets his actions.
You were not having sex so that she became pregnant?
No, I was scared, but
you were scared.
Yeah.
So why didn't you think about the maybe the condom or those things to stop you from getting her pregnant?
Okay, that would be my fault. Not using the condom or telling her to do family plan or something like that. That would be my fault.
Why? Why are you saying it's your fault?
Because I didn't use it.
Did she ask you to use it?
Nah. But me not making ready makes me that I did effort. I did a mistake. Yeah.
Unlike his peers, he has accepted responsibility and will go all length to demonstrate to neighbors that he is now a father and very capable. I had this conversation with him regarding plans to outdoor his baby Miracle. As the school looks forward to Charity and Dorcas's return, it has a responsibility to make the environment warm and receptive for both teenage mothers. It must be devoid of any form of stigmatization and discrimination. Augustina Mojaka is in charge of the Girl Child Education Unit of the Akache District.
If you take 3 pregnant girls, you realize that it's only 1 who is in school, 2 are not, so we check on them, monitor them while they are not in school. We listen to some of their challenges and we advise. Sometimes we talk to the parents. We try to do everything possible to make sure that they come back to school.
Interested in all of this? The second part of the documentary will air at 8:30 p.m. on the JoyNews channel. Make a date with us and just follow through. A 2021 baseline survey conducted in the Upper East region by child rights organization AfriKids Ghana revealed that 30% of girls in basic schools believe that science, technology, engineering and mathematics related fields were meant for males. The research also indicated that 60% of the girls considered these subjects as their least favorite in class. AfriKids Ghana has therefore been implementing a girls STEM project in 20 selected basic schools in the Bosa North District of the Bolgatanga municipality of the Upper East region. The project aims to guide the girls in STEM subjects so as to increase their awareness and whip up the interest in these subjects. Correspondent Albert Sorry now reports.
Here at the Anglican Junior High School in Bolgatanga, members of the Girls STEM Club are busy trying to produce some pavement blocks. When it rains, their school compound gets muddy, and it sometimes becomes difficult for the students and their teachers to move around. These girls are trying to solve that problem using their own innovation.
We are melting the litters around our environment to make some things that can benefit us in future. This area is a waterlogged area. Anytime it rains, the place are always choked with litters, and that is why we are deciding to make these design blocks so that we can fill them in our compound there. So anytime it rains, we can step on them and move to our classroom without falling down.
You look for the waste rubbish, you melt them. When you melt them, you add sand into it to make it dry so that we cannot use it.
Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, often abbreviated as STEM, are the subjects dreaded the most by girls in basic schools in Ghana. According to child rights organization Afrikids Ghana, 39% of girls in basic school who were interviewed for a 2021 survey believed that the STEM-related fields were meant for males, and 60% of the girls did not like these subjects. David Pualua is country director of Afrikids Ghana.
Either the girls themselves are not even developing the interest, or some of us who are equally players, especially in the school environment, are not encouraging girls enough because of that social cultural thinking that a woman, for instance, cannot be a mining engineer because if a woman works underground, she may not be able to procreate. Which, I mean, some of these things are just myths.
This Girls STEM Club is one of the measures Afrikids Ghana decided to adopt to increase girls' interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The girls here say they are learning a lot.
We do many experiments, how to even separate salt from sand. If I send my brother and he pours the salt into the sand, I can separate the sand from the salt.
The STEM clubs have been replicated in 20 selected schools in the Bolgatanga municipality and the Busa North district of the Upper East region. One of the schools is the St. John's Junior High School in Bolgatanga. With the guidance of their teacher and using various science apparatuses provided by Afrikids Ghana, the girls here enjoy the practicality of their STEM lessons.
This tie, which has been connected to the motherboard, the sensor, which has also been connected to the motherboard, and batteries, which has a wire, the power connector, which has also been connected to the motherboard, and the ties, which help you to move.
At first, I thought science was a difficult subject to me, but when I was introduced to this STEM, I now know that science is not a difficult subject.
Just like in the other schools, the girls here at the Christ the King RC Basic School in Sandema in the Busa North district enjoy the time they spend here at the STEM club because the club is making them love the subjects which they previously hated.
I got to learn so many things in the process of doing things with my own hands, which has improved my knowledge about certain things in the science lesson and that of maths, which I think that this STEM club is a very good program.
I would say STEM is a very interesting club and it is very practical. It has boosted my understanding on some subjects we've treated in our normal classes.
Afrikids Ghana started the Girls STEM project to help increase the participation of junior high school girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
STEM It's a major area in the new strategy for Africans 2021-2025. We're going to work closely with the Ghana Education Service for us to ensure that girls' STEM is happening in most of the schools, if not all.
For these girls, the STEM clubs have been their best experience in basic school.
Science, technology.
For Joy News, Albert Sori, reporting from Bolgatanga.
Well, let's take you back to the Ashanti region, where a 26-year-old woman has died in what neighbors say was the result of her toilet sinking into a pit dug under the house by illegal miners at Odumasi. Erastus Asaridonko, who found that report, is joining me via Zoom now. Erastus, are we getting some updates on what authorities are intending to do, given the fact that there may be some more dangers within the community?
Danger we are talking about is staring at us in the face. Just opposite the house whose toilet sank in, we have another house. We counted about 3 houses directly opposite that have these pits within the houses where mining is active as we speak. And so just next door, somebody's toilet has sunk in, but directly opposite, you have pits being dug inside the houses, and people are actively mining in those houses. So it's laughable when you see people even grieving about what has happened. So far, nothing has been done. The authorities have not been to the scene again. I spoke with some police sources. I was told that yes, they've gotten hints of mining pits within the various residential facilities at Odumasi, but according to my police source, police cannot just barge into people's residential areas and start arresting people. And so the situation remains the same as we speak.
But how about the rescue visuals that we've seen since yesterday? Is that supposed to be led by leadership within the community itself or some other organization?
Well, there was no rescue. There was one person who went to the toilet, and the entire facility sank into the illegal mining pit beneath the building. If you look at the building itself, you could see cracks. Huge cracks indicating that on any day, it can also sink in. But the retrieval of the body of this woman was done together with the fire service, the police, and other agencies. And after the body was retrieved, that is it. They just covered the pits they saw there, and that is it. But you are seeing a number of houses within the same locality with pits in them. And so you see people going in and out of these houses, and you think that perhaps they are tenants, they are going into their rooms or something, but they are going in there to mine. They descend deep down into pits they've dug in those houses, and sometimes if you are looking for them, they will appear somewhere in another house because the pits are aligned and they are interconnected. So that is what is happening, and it's not something that is hidden, it's open. Some of the houses are close by the main road. Some of them are sitting directly at the center of the Odumasi town itself. Properly roofed, looks like a normal residential facility, but in there, people are in there, staying there, but then there are people who go in there to mine. They go underground in those houses. And nobody seems to be perturbed.
So for now, how about the traditional rulers in the area? Any signs of them?
Well, I know that the chief of Odumasi, the previous one, used to fight this a lot until it got this worse. The current chief, yesterday we tried to, we knocked on his door, but nobody responded. We were told that he has gone out. We wanted to find out from him what plans or what steps he is taking to try to stop this, but we did not meet him. But when you get to the roundabout inside your Dumasi town itself, there is this beautiful yellow house just at the center of the town. And when you look at it from the front, you might think that is a beautiful, nice edifice, roofed properly. But when we went to the back of the house, we saw, tubes and other things leading directly from outside into the building itself, indicating that mining was actively going on inside the house. There are about 4 pits within this particular house that they are mining. And so it is fair knowledge. Nobody can deny knowledge that any authority knows about that does not have any information on this. It's something that is done publicly and openly within the community.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you so much for the update, Erastus Asare Donko, bringing us that update from Dumasi. The Ministry of Health says it is working and will continue to work and collaborate with the Extension Community Health Care Outcome, ECO, to enhance and improve quality healthcare delivery in the country. According to the Special Advisor to the Minister of Health and Human Resource, Dr. Bafo Ewa, it is imperative to partner health programs such as ECO to meet the health needs of patients. He was speaking at the official launch of ECO Ghana Network here in Accra.
ECO Network is a system created by researchers at the University of New Mexico to provide timely training to healthcare providers on COVID-19 and other communicable diseases while providing healthcare topics such as surveillance, diagnosis, management, and mitigation through digital means for health experts. ECO has since been in Ghana for the past 2 years in providing mentoring and mentorship to Ghanaian health workers. Speaking at the launch of the ECO Ghana Network, Special Advisor to the Minister of Health on Human Resource, Dr. Bafo Ewa, called on other health practitioners to take advantage of this platform and enhance their service delivery.
They cannot, because certain logistics, they cannot move to peripheral areas. They can collaborate with the lower level staff using technology to deliver healthcare services. So it can be any form of healthcare, whether cardiology or nephrology or to other nurses, pharmacy, doctors.
On her part, CEO of Japago, Dr. Pearl Nanka Bruce said, although her outfit is seeking to expand ECO to other parts of the country, infrastructure will be key in achieving that.
For ECO, you could say you need infrastructure, but it might not be much. The way it works, you just need, if the participant has their cell phone or they are able to just log on. But we know that sometimes there are challenges. So for instance, for these 10 hubs, we helped with the procurement and the installation of the infrastructure. So TV screens, computers, etc., where participants could go to and where also the lecturers or whoever was teaching then could broadcast from, and then everybody would be able to receive. And so in expanding this, we would need some more infrastructure to be able to do that.
The launch brought together organizations interested in working with ECO throughout Ghana to learn about what each organization wants to do with ECO.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. When we return, we'll talk about a group of individuals who are pushing for mainstreaming of stammering. Of course, you've heard right the message from a group of individuals who are asking us to try and get more educated and get more information on persons suffering from the condition. We'll talk about it shortly. And you're welcome back. We have the right to be heard. The message from a group of individuals pushing for the mainstreaming of stammering. The condition is when someone repeats prolonged words or gets stuck when trying to say sounds or words, and it's often associated with some stigma and sometimes discrimination. However, in a bid to reverse this trend, the group says it is dedicating the coming days to creating a world that understands, accepts and support people who stammer. So guess what? I have Benedict and my very good friend Remy joining us in studio. So let me start off with you, Benedict. What is it that you want the world and people living in Ghana to know about stammering?
Okay. I want the world to know that the fact that we stammer doesn't mean that they should they should look down on us, right, or try to make fun of us,
right, or probably discriminate.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Sure, because we are all.
How often do you face that, for instance? Do people do that to you?
Not now, right, but when I was growing up, yeah, people used to make fun of me.
Right.
But now the place I am now, there are people around me.
Kind of accept it, and you move freely and go about your different.
Sure.
Remy, how about you? What do you feel people should know about this?
I would just say that stammering is not a condition like everyone perceive it to be, and it's not like we can't talk. There are times where we can like talk fluently for like a certain period of time, and then there are times that we just have to break and then talk, and then it's not something that can go. It's not like something that can go. We just have to like train ourselves to be able to talk one at a time. And then stammering really varies. It's not like everybody stammers or stutters in a really different way. Some people are like me, you just maybe stutter just once in a while. And some people, they do break for a very prolonged time. And we just need to like learn to have patience with people who do stammer. Because it happens a lot of time. You go somewhere and then like you're talking and then you just start stammering. And before you know, like the whole crowd is already laughing at you. And you could just go and just start crying because it just, but I just want people to know that it's not a condition. It's not like a sickness that we have to like cure, but it's something that can be worked on.
Yeah, but so for instance, you're speaking now, I don't sense that too much. People would say, well, you don't have the condition. Yeah. I don't want to call it a condition now that I'm getting educated on this.
I would say that most people don't know I stammer until it happens. Because I joined Ghana Stammering Association like for about like 1 year now, I would say, and it's a really good platform where we are being trained to be able to talk, and then we have articles to read. Everybody varies, like I said, so mine might not be serious. I would say I usually like stammer a lot of times when I'm so angry, like when I'm under a lot of pressure, I would like stutter for a very long period of time. But there are people who are just there, they want to make a statement, but then the word just can't move, like it's just right there, but they just can't say it.
But Benedict, do people feel sometimes that you are intentionally doing what you're doing? Do you come across people like that who feel, well, it's intentional, you learnt it, and that's why you're doing that?
People even
sometimes
they
feel.
You think we're having a seizure or something?
Okay. You get such reactions.
No, yeah. The head jerks and the blinking of the eye. Yeah. But it's a very complicated thing, so people should accept. Yeah.
Okay, so for instance, you're in school?
Yeah, I'm in medical school right now, final year medical school.
Oh, that's amazing. So you're in a medical school, for instance. How do you relate with your colleagues, or how do your colleagues relate with you? Do they have the patience for you to say what you want to say, for instance, in class?
When I'm talking
with them,
with my colleagues, I hardly stutter. But when I'm talking with my lecturers or consultants in school, that's when I stutter.
Oh, that's interesting. Is it because of the fear or the tension?
Sure.
So if you're interacting with your friends...
You are new to me, so
you see
that
you get the hesitation. But once you're amongst your friends, you just go freely.
You just flow.
That way.
Well.
And Remy, why do we have variations in this? Probably you've studied more into this, so is there something accounting for that?
I really don't know how to explain that, but then I'll just say that everyone is different.
Right.
I don't know why. I've not been able to like figure out why there are a lot of like stages, I would say, to stammering, because you can be in stage A and then you are okay.
Yeah.
It just depends on, and you see mostly why people stutter is because of their fear, like you said. Most of people I know who stutter are like, when we are around, like you said, we don't like, you will not know that we stutter, but like when it's more like, and the anxiety is too much, and then when the fear is too much, it causes the stutter a lot. Like you just can't speak.
Okay. So, Benedict, so just share a message with our viewers and tell them what they need to know about stammering, right?
Okay. Stammering is like, it's people born with stammering, don't have any power over it. It's like, let it disappear or something.
Right.
Yes. So you should accept us and be patient with us. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, you should be patient.
Yeah, you need to be patient with people who stammer. Yeah. And for you, Remy?
I really don't have much to say, but then it all falls on the word patience. People need to learn to accept us, that we can't always talk just like how I'm talking right now. Most people will say, oh, she doesn't stutter. But then when it starts, like, you'll be like, oh, wow, she looks quiet, but she doesn't stutter. But we just need people to, like, accept people who do stammer or stutter anywhere in the world, because it leads to a lot of problems when you don't accept us, because it could lead to death in some cases. It leads to depression. It has a lot of disadvantages when you don't listen to like people who stutter. So the word patience is really key, and I just really hope that the world is like ready to inculcate that into their habits. Just the word patience. People just need to be patient and not like make mockery of people who do stutter out there.
Yeah,
indeed. And that's a very powerful message. You need to also get that out there. But of course, I'm grateful to Benedict and Remy for joining us in studio. And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. Don't forget to log on to myjoyonline.com. We do have updates on our site for you. Thanks for your time.